Yeah. Okay, our next to last. Andrew, welcome. And it's your time to shine. Go to it.
My name is Andrew Senkbeil, and I will be presenting you with media snippet. So the problem that I wanted to solve was that sharing in-game images for video games can be pretty difficult, and while there are solutions such as capture cards, a lot of hardware, they can be pretty expensive. And even if you have a way to capture those things, it's not always easy to share them. Not every social media doesn't reach everybody. Me personally, I have a lot of friends that don't use very much social media at all. So, yeah. My goals for this project was I wanted to create a snipping tool to take some images. I wanted to be able to display those images and share them very easily, and I wanted to be able to browse the previous images that I've taken. And my personal goals for this project was I wanted to try a lot of new things. Specifically, I wanted to do a new language, so I chose Python. I also have never worked with a GUI before, and I thought that would be very cool and very new and exciting. And at the time that I started this project, I had never done any web development either, so I wanted to try that out too. And lastly, I wanted to create something that was usable for the everyday person. So most of the things that we do here at Carthage are academic-based and not super user-friendly. So why did I pick Python? It is a very fast-growing and popular language. There's a lot of frameworks, and a lot of people use it these days. It's different from the other languages that we've used here, specifically C and C++ is used a lot, especially in the intro courses. And there's a lot of frameworks, like I said before. Machine learning and data science are very popular. There's multiple frameworks for each of those. There's also multiple frameworks for web development and GUIs, and those are the two that I decided to use. So the frameworks that I did decide to use for web development, I used Flask, which is a micro framework, opposed to a full stack framework, something like Django. Flask doesn't do a whole lot for you. It really just handles HTTP requests and makes you do everything else on your own. And for the GUI framework, I chose tkinter. It is very common, it's very well documented, and it is included in most distributions of Python. So I assumed that if the people who created Python liked it, then it must be pretty good. So this is kind of a workflow or architecture of my project. So we have the application here, and it sends a picture to the server, and that server exchanges a file path and an ID with the database, and the server then returns a URL to the application, which you can then go over to the web page or your preferred web browser and ask for the picture, and the server will display the picture. So my process personally for developing this was I would look at my main body of code and decide what I needed to add next. And I would break off into generally a separate file and prototype a minimal test case. So if I wanted to create a thumbnail for something or add a scroll bar, I would work it all out in a separate file, and then I would adapt it into the workflow. And what that means is basically I would see what kind of variables need to go into it and how else it would fit into my project, and then put it in the main body of code. So that made debugging things very easy because I knew exactly what worked and what didn't before I put it in the main body of code. And if something went wrong, then it was probably with the variables I was changing. So here is, where's my mouse? There it is. Okay, so here's my UI, the first page. The first thing I would click on is pretty straightforward. Browse some pictures. So each of these pictures has a thumbnail, and if you were to click on that thumbnail, you would, it'll bring up the image in your desired browser. And on the side here, there are some radio buttons. So if you click on one of these radio buttons, and you can copy that to the clipboard with this button, you can then go back and copy it in there, and it'll bring it up. And this application works great for something like RuneScape. Oh no, gotta switch. I did, you know, maybe. There we go. So then we can, where am I? We can zoom in on my character here. It's kind of hard with the trackpad. And go back to my application, and we can use the snipping tool to capture my guy. And then I can rename the URL to something else other than a blob of numbers and letters to my guy. My guy. And the name has successfully been changed. So now you can see that it has been changed. And if we go back to the browsing, you can see that we have it right here. It's in there now. And there it is. There's my guy. Okay, so what I learned a brand new language, which was obviously very new to me. I've only really done, up to this point, when I started the project, I'd only really worked in C and C++. And I learned some new technologies. I had never done web development, and I learned a lot about web development. And GUIs especially were a big hurdle for me. It took a while to fully understand, how they work and how to lay things out properly. So, and then there are also a lot of different solutions to problems, and they, while it might work immediately, later on down the road you'll realize, oh, it didn't actually work because this new thing I'm adding won't play nice with the old thing. So definitely don't be afraid to rewrite portions of code, because it's almost always for the better in this case. And future work, I would like to add a video option so you can record your screen easily. I would like to make it cross-platform. So right now it only works on Windows, but to be able to have it work on Linux and Mac would be very nice. And I would also like to purchase a domain name to host the server on, because right now it is only hosted locally, but if I were to push it, if I were to want people to actually be able to use it, I would have to host it somewhere. And more of an internal reflection, it's a lot like what Zach said, I believe. It's not always bad to be frustrated and give yourself time to be able to walk away from it. And a lot of the big issues I encountered, I solved when I was not sitting at my computer working on it. I solved it when I was talking to my roommate about it, or thinking about it while I was in the shower. So definitely Mahoney's rubber duck very helpful to me. Are there any questions? Yes.
So you said you want to add a video function. With that, did you also want to make like a GIF function or something?
That would be really cool to be able to make a GIF. Yes. Yeah.
Something that I think would be cool for you to add, have like a hotkey, I suppose, to open the snipping tool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really cool. I think Yazo has something like Control Shift C or something that opens it up for you. That'd be really neat.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Another one. For your cursor, when you went to go grab the image, have you thought of a way to like make a little box go around like the area you're actually trying to highlight? Because I didn't see anything from back here. So
There isn't now, but that would be pretty cool. Also, I wanted to stray away from a click and drag because it's pretty hard on trackpads. So I stuck with the 2 clicks, but which that might be a little harder to show a highlighted box of, but it might be possible. Yeah. Yeah.
You had said that you wanted to possibly port it over to Mac and Linux. What kind of steps did you have to take for that?
A lot of the Windows-specific things are file-based, so keeping the thumbnails and creating a directory to keep those thumbnails in is right now only works on Windows. All right.
Good. Good job.